got to tell you, if I see people who are in Muslim garb, and I think, you know, they're identifying themselves first and foremost as Muslims, I get worried. I get nervous.
His feelings that he expressed on Fox News are really between him and his, you know, psychiatrist or his publicist, or take your pick.
Well, that was the comment from Juan Williams that stirred up so much controversy this week, and the unceremonious way that NPR executive Vivian Schiller announced his dismissal. And it's time now for our Sunday group. Britt Hume, Fox News senior political analyst, and contributors Nina Easton of Fortune magazine, Bill Kristol of the Weekly Standard, and Juan Williams, formerly of National Public Radio and always of Fox News. We should point out that Mara Elias, and also from NPR, had long planned to take this Sunday off, so don't read anything into that. Juan, you've had a couple of days to reflect on this now. What do you make of your dismissal and this extraordinary reaction to it?
Well, it was a rough week, Chris. But to get fired, obviously, is no pleasure, but then to be called a bigot and the innuendo that I'm somehow unstable was, I thought, despicable. What I make of this is it's opened to debate about the importance of having free-flowing and honest discussion in this country. And you know, I don't think I started. I think there was action taken that then set this afloat in the country. I think Americans feel, you know what, there's nothing wrong in telling someone how you feel, and then to be punished for that is unfair and amounts to censorship, and the idea that then that they would engage in character assassination against me and about my professional behavior, given the work I've done, I just think it was regrettable. But I think it's important that people be able to talk to each other across political lines. I think it's important that I irritate Britt Hume and Bill Kristol every Sunday.
And you succeed at that.
And that they fire back at me, and they may raise their eyebrows and make faces, but you know what? These people are honest with me, and I don't question their integrity, and why my integrity has to be questioned. I mean, to me, I'm still in the storm of it, but I just thought it was unfair.
I have to say, this is the first time we have seen each other because you've been up in New York this whole week. You're really hurt by this, aren't you?
Well, yes. I mean, I don't want that to be the focus. I want to move on from this. This is not going to define me and my career. I think the importance of the debate is true, that we as Americans have to have this debate. But if you're asking me about being hurt, being fired, and the kind of personal attacks, the ad hominem suggestion that I am an unstable person and I'm not a good journalist, that's not, to me, well, I just have to ask others to speak up. And you know what has been gratifying is the tremendous amount of public support that I have received from people both right and left. It would have been easy for the right to say, well, you know, we've been subject to this kind of treatment from the left for a long time, that if you say something that they don't like, they call you a racist or a bigot. But what's been tremendously surprising to me is that people on the left have resisted the temptation to simply say, well, you know, we're not going to say anything against NPR. People said, you know what, this isn't right. And I think that's just an important moment in American public life.
I want to ask you one more question, and then we'll bring everybody else in. Your former bosses at NPR, this is the specific grounds for your dismissal, said the problem was that you're a news analyst. You're supposed to provide analysis based on fact. And in fact, they say, you provided opinion. I want to show, though, before I get your answer, what some of your colleagues at NPR have said over the years. In March, Cokie Roberts wrote a column about Glenn Beck in which she said this: Beck is worse than a clown. He's more like a terrorist who believes he has discovered the one true faith and condemns everyone else as a heretic. And that makes him something else as well, a traitor to the American values he professes so loudly to defend. That's Cokie Roberts in a column. And then there's Cokie's reaction on This Week, the show, ABC show, to a Supreme Court ruling on partial birth abortion. Let's watch.
I'm just saying that, you know, women would be protected from regrets later in life. You know, there are lots of moral decisions people make all through their lives where they regret them. And the idea that the court is going to stop that for women is something that I think is just offensive.
Somehow NPR didn't seem to think those opinions were objectionable.
Well, you know what, I think, just to be blunt, I think that they were using a lot of this as a pretext to get rid of me. I think they don't like the idea that I appear on Fox News. I think they think that somehow, in their own state of mind, I am somehow legitimizing Fox News by simply appearing on shows rather than being willing to engage in debate and discussion. I think that is in the great American tradition. The second point that I want to make very quickly, Chris, before we bring other people in here, is this. They suggest that I somehow violated NPR standards, journalistic standards, by telling people about a feeling I had. I think in terms of my values, and I hope in terms of everybody's values for journalists, that people should be open and able to say, this is how I feel in this situation, let's talk about it. I didn't advocate discriminating against Muslims.
Britt, we also have the case of Nina Totenberg, who's not an analyst, but NPR's legal affairs correspondent. Besides, a few years ago, wishing that the late Senator Jesse Helms would get AIDS for
opposing his grandchildren
or his grandchild for opposing AIDS government research. Right. We also have, just in the last month, her reaction. Remember, she covers the court to the court's ruling in Citizens United, a decision that said the corporations could get more involved in political campaigns. Let's watch.
Well, you know, really, this is the next scandal. It's the scandal in the making. They don't have to disclose anything, and eventually, this is the kind of thing that led to Watergate.
And again, this is a reporter who covers the court. So what's going on here?
This is a reporter, and that was an opinion. Now, this is what has been so howlingly clear about this case right from the get-go. That was the statement by Vivian Schiller, the CEO of NPR, the day after this happened, when she sought to explain it and said that they had a very clear editorial standard at NPR, that its analysts, and presumably even more so its correspondents, were not permitted to express opinions. Fact-based analysis, fine, not opinions. Juan has expressed opinions over the years here on Fox. It's always sat badly. There's no evidence that Nina Totenberg has ever been in any way criticized, warned, or has suffered any loss of standing for her freewheeling opinion dispensing that she's done on that show Inside Washington for almost the better part of 2 decades. And as you pointed out, Cokie Roberts, another esteemed colleague, someone who, like you, we all know very well, has ever been reprimanded for that kind of thing either.
So what's the reason?
Howling double standard. The standard that was applied to Juan Williams is manifestly not being applied to other NPR people. And I think it's simply this, that in the culture of NPR, appearing on Fox is a sin. And in the culture of NPR, for an African-American man like Juan, regardless of his extraordinary stature, to be there and be kind of a Bill Cosby liberal, not a down-the-line liberal, is a sin as well. They've been gunning for him for years. This remark about Muslim people in Muslim garbs at airports was merely a pretext, and they've been wanting to get him, and they got him, and in so doing exposed themselves for what they are.
Nina, some congressional conservatives are talking now about cutting government funding for NPR. They don't get a lot of money, 1 or 2% of their budget, but also from public television, which would be a much more serious deal. Is that the right response, and how likely do you think it is to happen?
It's a response that's been going back to the 1990s, the mid-90s. There was a very serious effort to defund NPR, and a lot of their member stations do get taxpayer funding too, so it's not just that 2% that goes to NPR. I think this is, it's in a time of budget crunch, looking for cuts. I think it's a real threat right now, as Juan mentioned. There was outrage over his firing from the left and the right, and media editorials. You can't get past this double standard issue. And I'll raise another name. The late, great Daniel Schorr did a biting, acerbic, liberal commentary regularly on NPR. And in fact, he called the 2000 Supreme Court decision that gave George Bush the right to take office as president. He described that as a junta, as a coup, and described the Supreme Court as a gang of five. And he's always been lauded, and it was a liberal opinion column, fine. But they called him a news analyst, the same way they called Juan. So you can't. This distinction between news analyst and opinion is not being applied in any kind of fair manner.
Bill.
So much to dislike about NPR, it's hard to know where to begin. But for me, the CEO, Vivian Schiller's comment, I mean, the arrogance of it. Juan has worked at NPR for how long?
More than 10 years.
More than 10 years. And she, in a public forum, having had someone call you to fire you, not having had a meeting with you to discuss anything, says he should see his psychiatrist. I mean, that really is unbelievable.
He should have discussed this with
his psychiatrist. He can discuss it with a psychiatrist or his publicist. Who is your publicist, incidentally?
I don't have a psychiatrist or a publicist.
Whoever he is, he's done a heck of a job.
No, Juan's giving me his name after the show. And that just tells you everything, though, about, the total lack of enough self-awareness to know that you are the CEO of a major news organization, one that happens to get quite a lot of government funding, and you're allowed to slander people that way. It's really unbelievable.
And my great fear is that Juan's going to become a conservative out of this, and it would take all the zing out of the panel. Please don't.
Well, let me just say, buddy, that we're delighted that you're going to be here, as you have been for so many years. We value you. That doesn't mean we're not going to yell at you.
Oh.
That doesn't mean that you're not going to get in trouble when you go past the time cues, but we're delighted. And buck up. You're among friends.
Well, I appreciate that, and I expect Britt to punch me in the minute I'm leaving.
Well, that goes without saying. Leaving, we've got another segment. Hold on here. We'll take a break right now, but when we come back with 9 days and counting till the midterms, our group here will tell us where the campaign stands right now.